Welcome to the Celebrate Brave podcast. I'm Nicole Church-Steinbach, your host and the International Bravery Coach for Women in Tech. I serve women all over the world to earn more money, create more opportunities, and thrive in the tech industry because tech needs all of us. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to this episode of the Celebrate Brave podcast. I get to share with you an incredible conversation with a friend, a role model, a fellow entrepreneur, a fellow parent, and so much more. Her name is Arezou Zarafshan. And you're going to there's so much. She's a former executive, entrepreneur. She is a mom. She is an immigrant. And she, like I said, is a role model. I've known Arezou for a couple of years now, and I have witnessed how she never gives up on herself, and she never gives up on you. You know, in this conversation, we both share deeply personal, and in my case, the first time I've ever shared part of my story of leaving, of exiting corporate. You know, we talk about breaking free from situations, relationships, habits that just don't serve us, and how the deeply painful experience and process of self-discovery, of choosing ourselves. And we do not skip the pain part. Too many people are running around trying to skip to the good part. The good part is created as we walk through the pain, the painful self-discovery. And one of the things that I really want to pull out from this conversation, my biggest aha was all of that led us to who we are. In this conversation, we speak very little about what we do, and we talk about who we are. And so the inspiration that this conversation is going to give to you, I'm so proud to bring this into the world. And what I want to encourage you to do is after you listen, take some time and consider what are some of the potentially painful steps of self-discovery are in front of you. This is part of my accountability, the own it like a boss. What opportunity and what obstacles are in front of you that you need to address, that you can address, that you are potentially avoiding? And who do you want to become? And with that, I gift you this amazing conversation with an incredible woman in technology. You will leave this episode changed. Hello, brave people, and welcome to this episode. I am super excited to share a person that is a brave role model for me in my life. Arezou, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I am so excited about your profile is that you have an executive background, you have this founding background, you're also a caregiver, you have a very global background. And so, for all those reasons, I was drawn to you when I first met you. And then your heart and your devotion, but also your clear speak, just is one of the reasons I'm like a moth to the flame. What do you really want people to know about you as we enter into this brave conversation?
Thank you for having me, Nicole. And the feeling is very mutual. I'm Arezou, and yeah, I'm a mom and an entrepreneur, a former global executive, an immigrant. What do I want people to know about me? That I'm all of those things. And I think if there is one thing that I want everyone to, I hope that it is synonymous with my name, is that I never stop. I don't stop. I don't quit.
No matter what.
I have to rephrase what I said. If I believe in a mission, I don't stop. I do stop toxicity when I sense it, and then I pick a different path, and then I keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that really inspires me. So, the listeners have heard a lot of stories from me and fellow women in technology about speaking up. And one of the things that being in the group that we were in, so we were in a mastermind for a year together, was experiencing at least two other women who would notice a step towards unhelpful behavior, a step towards a mindset that doesn't serve and holds people back. Some people, toxic, right?
Hmm.
But before that, and clearly communicating, let's go this way.
Correct.
And I think that's one of the most, I'm hesitating to say this because there's so much beauty, but I genuinely feel right now for a lot of my clients and for myself as well, this is a skill, is meeting the trend before it's toxic
Hmm.
and shifting before it's truly toxic. But I know that for myself, I only learned that because I was in really toxic
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
unfortunately, you have to have some battle scars in order to learn that skill. It's not something that I at least don't know if anyone can say that, oh, I can sense it before it happens to me, and it's never happened to me for that reason. Most people that can sense it before it happens is because they have been in toxic situations, and then they know the signs, so then they learn how to identify before they step into it.
That is such a powerful summation of exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you. That is the insight. We can identify it because we've been inside of it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Which I think brings us potentially to your brave story.
This is a hard one that you were asking me, what's your brave story? And there are many moments in my life as I look back, I think, my goodness, wow, that was brave. That was brave.
Yeah. But at the time, you're like,
I'm
okay,
doing
I'm doing
this.
this. I'm
Yeah.
doing this.
But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
theme amongst all of it is breaking free from something that didn't serve me. And even at that time when it feels scary and on paper everything is right and it feels safe at that moment, breaking free of it, and again recognizing that this doesn't serve me, that's the theme. My I have
Mm.
many, but I think the most defining one happened to me 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. So I was living in Chicago with my then fiance, now husband, and I had a big global job, teams across the world, traveled across the world, lived in a humongous house on a private golf course, and big title, fancy cars, you name it. And on paper, everything looked good. Everything,
So on paper, it was like check,
yeah,
check,
yeah,
check, check,
success.
success.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I did not know you lived in Chicago, and that gave me a big smile for some reason. I'm not sure
Yeah,
why.
truth be told, it was suburbs of Chicago, but everybody who lives in the suburbs of Chicago, they say that they live in Chicago. So, anyways,
Yeah.
again, on paper, everything looked really, really good. but I was in a job that was making me miserable. And it wasn't so much the job itself, it was the people that I worked with, minus my boss. I loved my boss. My boss is still a dear friend, but he left when things changed. And then it was just very, very toxic. And for a long time, I kept telling myself, "Oh no, I like this. No, it's good. It's these are the challenges I need to face, and these are good." But I mean, how much can you lie to yourself? And I mean, there were days that I would just leave the office and go cry somewhere.
Oh God,
Yeah,
I've been there. Oh
yeah.
God, I've been there.
There was one time that, after the regime changed and my boss, left, and I was in this executive meeting, at the highest levels of the company. And in this meeting, and I think I was the only woman, I think. In this meeting, I was feeling
Mm.
so down and so sad and just pent up emotions. And I kept telling myself, I can't cry here. I cannot cry in this room. I will not cry. But I knew that that was not possible. So what did I do in this meeting room? I put on my sunglasses because I did not want people to see me cry. And yeah.
Oh wow.
Anyway, so
Yeah, we will twist and twist and twist
yeah,
ourselves, won't
yeah,
we?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it finally affected my health, and my health spoke to me. So it put me out for 3 months on disability. While I was on disability, just kept thinking, what do I do? Do I go back? And by the way, I had a promise of a promotion from the CEO that when I go back,
Oh,
I will even have a bigger
yeah.
title and bigger job, bigger pay. But I decided I'm going to quit. And this was 2010, which was the middle of the recession, the 2008 recession. So 2 years later, the economy hadn't come
Mm.
back, definitely not in Illinois. I had, all those fancy things that
Yeah.
I told you about meant debt. That's what it meant.
Right.
And, we had this house, this mortgage, all this stuff to pay for. And quitting also meant walking away from my equity in the company. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did that. I did that. And it was scary. And then my then fiance and I decided Illinois just doesn't work for us. So we moved to Colorado. And,
Mm.
things worked out afterwards. Things worked out.
So you have on okay, so on paper, success, 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 success. I know that for me, when I was in the board meeting and I was miserable, I kept telling myself, hundreds of people want to be sitting right where you are. Be grateful, be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. Hundreds of people. They flew you from Colorado to be in this room, back to Germany. Why aren't you grateful? Why? Like, I had this whole internal nonsense
Mm-hmm.
happening. It was
Mm-hmm.
so painful. And suffering so much, just like you. I'm so grateful you're sharing this story. Wow, I'm really tearing up
Mm.
for us. Well, for me, it was 4 years ago. For you, it was 10 years ago. Like the just with grace of this experience, like we share this experience, right? And then you've got gold, and now you're being offered platinum, and you decide you're not going to lie to yourself anymore. I mean, that's so much the process that I went through as well.
Yeah. And you have to leap
And
into the unknown. That's the scary part. It wasn't that I was, and it's the same for you, Nicole. It wasn't that I was
yes,
moving
yeah.
from this job to this job. I was moving from, to your
Mm-hmm.
point, gold and platinum into nothing, into nothing.
Nothing. So when I leapt, I felt like I was leaping into me, though.
Great point. Great point. And you're right. So that means that you had enough of self knowledge, self understanding, self awareness to know that you were leaping into you for me, my
Mhm.
corporate identity was a defining element of me. I didn't know me outside of what was on paper.
Yes.
And it took
Yes.
6 months for me to find myself. And it was hard. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life, but it was so good. It was go from having a routine, having people, having a big title, to, like I said, none of that. Go to networking meetings with all kinds of fancy people. They ask you, so what do you do? Uh, I'm in transition. It's a humbling experience. One of the things that I wanted to do, I re-examined my career focus, my professional focus. I put myself through an executive professional development through Kellogg, which was pretty spendy. And that's the type of things that usually
Yeah.
companies honor their employees and pay for that training for their employees. So I did it for myself. I said, I want to go through this training and explore this other professional domain. And I was in a room of 60 people that had flown from all over the world by their companies, Swiss Air, Deutsche Bank,
Yeah, that is
prestigious. Yeah,
prestigious. Prestigious,
correct.
pricey.
And
Yeah.
everyone has a title. I am so and so and senior vice president of Schneider Electric. I'm so and so and chief operating officer of British Airways, etc., etc. I'm Arezou Zarafshan, and I have no title. And it was humbling. It was so humbling. But
Yeah.
that 6 months, and I put myself through a lot of self studies, Johnson O'Connor Institute, to learn about my aptitudes and other kinds of studies that show me, who am I really? Who am I? Who's Arezou outside of all of this stuff? The professionals,
Mm,
who
mm.
am I? How am I wired? And it was a 6 month process. It was very, very difficult. But that's when, to your point, Nicole, I didn't know me. When I left that job, I was leaping into nothing. And it took me 6 months to learn, all right, now I'm going to be me. I'm leaping into me.
After taking a huge risk.
Correct.
Because 6 months for me sounds real fast. So before, I don't think I've shared this publicly yet. Before I left corporate, and my story was a little bit, I had a series of really horrible managers and then suddenly a series of really amazing managers. And when those leaders and managers left, it went back to probably what the norm was.
Mm-hmm.
I did 9 months of therapy to emotionally separate myself,
Mm-hmm.
like essentially divorce therapy
Yeah.
from that corporation, from that culture, and from the identification of myself as this is my title. I didn't start off with that. I was suffering. I wasn't sleeping well. My eating disorder was getting some triggers. My family was miserable, right? And I started investing in myself in some different ways, having the company invest and then also therapy. Only maybe a couple of months in did the therapist actually say, "Hey, I just need to pull to your attention. We're doing essentially divorce therapy."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So 6 months for me sounds like you took an enormous risk. The stakes were super high. And then you took just getting into the Kellogg program and paying for that on your own is very impressive, right?
Thank you. Yes.
So you could make these huge leaps as part of your brave story. Wow. I did not know that about you. That's why I love these conversations so much. Would you do it again?
Well, would I do what again? Would I take that leap?
Would you take that big
Yeah.
risk? So you had your health
Yeah.
situation, 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
disability. You do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Positively. Hopefully, back to the point of not getting into toxic situations again. Hopefully I won't make that mistake. But to be honest with you, it was very different. I was recruited to have this big job. When I met my boss who recruited me to come and do this, I was like, I have to work for this man. There's so much I need to learn from him. And he's still, to this day, we're great friends, and he's a mentor. He's a wonderful human being. So I am
Mhm.
so glad out of that experience, I got that relationship and, a lot of learnings and a lot of connections. But when the administration changed and how everything became so incredibly toxic, yeah, so would I do it again? I probably would take that step earlier. When my boss left, I would leave. When the only thing that was making the environment tolerable for me, when that left, I should have left, but should have doesn't really help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a lot of things that I don't know if I would have gone through this really painful self rediscovery if I had taken that step earlier. It really was painful. It was really painful because all of a sudden I had no idea. I didn't know, who's Arezou? What am I passionate about? What do I do? I wake up in the morning. What do I do today? What do I do? Yeah, so I'm really glad I went through it, and it was defining for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things, like, that's a story that for me really crystallizes a belief, a very strong belief I have, that it's always who first
Yeah,
and then what and how.
exactly
Who
right.
am I? What lights me up? What weighs me down? Who do I want to become? And then the what?
Hmm.
And then the what?
And then what?
So what became the what? You know that I desperately want to share this.
Well, Colorado, things worked out really nicely. I worked for a few big companies, and you work for corporate, you know how it is, right? You have private equity coming in, private equity does what it does, which gets rid of a
Yeah.
management. So we had that. We had another kind of a regime change in another company that I was at. And so all in all, and Colorado being such a wonderful place for founders and startups and entrepreneurs, I found myself thrown into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I co founded a company with a couple other women that unfortunately didn't work out. That company doesn't exist
Another
anymore.
risk, another
Another risk.
growth.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I learned so much from that. I learned so much about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and how do you think like an entrepreneur? How do you, I don't want to say act, how do you do business like an entrepreneur? And how do you find your co-founders, and what do you look for? How do you find investment capital? So I learned a lot from that. So that was my training ground. And then last year, actually, I should tell this story. This is actually a good story. So, have always been very involved professionally, whether I've had a job or not. If I have a job, great. If I don't have a job, I network like crazy. I take classes, you
Yeah,
and I,
totally.
yeah. I volunteer. So I did a lot of stuff while after that startup didn't work out. But I'm also a very involved mom, and my son is really intense. So him and I have a really, really close relationship, always have had it. But, when I had my big jobs, I had a full-time home manager that
Yeah.
that I trusted. She was awesome. She traveled with me. And so I really felt like while I was, working, I could trust this wonderful human to care for my son and care for everything in the house. And I would come home, and my son, yes, he would miss me, but we can spend great time together because everything is done. I don't have to think about making dinner. I don't have to think about
Yeah.
cleaning the house. I don't have to think about giving him a bath or whatever, tidying up the. it's all so him and I can spend time together.
And I love so much that you just said, I don't have to think about it, because
Yeah,
it's the thinking, the mental load that is, for me, bigger than
exhausting
actually
doing
doing the
it.
things. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh huh. Yep.
So that was when I had my big job. But then after that, then she stayed with us for a couple of years, but then she moved on and I couldn't afford having a full-time home manager anymore. All of this stuff that she did now was on the family. My ambition didn't go away. I still wanted to be involved professionally. I still wanted to network. I still wanted to go to events.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But all this other stuff is here too that needs to be done. So there was one weekend that it was particularly a difficult weekend for our family, and I had signed up to be a mentor for a startup event for women that weekend, the whole weekend. I signed up for it. So what that meant was I had to leave the house and leave my husband and my son together for them to figure out what to do. And I really didn't feel good about doing that, because it was just a very
Mm.
tumultuous time in our family and just a lot of tension between my husband and me. And I
Mhm.
didn't really feel like that was the right thing to do. At the same time, I didn't want to cancel my commitment. So we decided that my husband and my son were going to go spend the day at the Children's Museum.
Yeah, I love that
And I was
place.
going to go there with them and then take Uber, go to the startup event, do my mentoring, take Uber back, go to Children's Museum. They've had a good day, so we can go home. That was the plan. We did that. I took Uber, went to the startup event, but the whole time, my mind is racing. I'm thinking, gosh, did I leave the stove on when we left the house? Do we have stuff for dinner when we go home?
The mental load
The
is
mental load.
real.
Yeah. Did I take the
Mm-hmm.
dog out? What if she has an accident?
Mm-hmm.
My God, was my son wearing clean clothes this morning because I haven't done laundry for months, or for weeks, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is in my head, and I look absolutely, I mean, all of that shows,
It
right? I mean,
shows
I am
100%.
just stressed,
Yeah.
and my hair, like, awful. I have had a haircut for months. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
everything looked awful. So I went to this startup event. I was late, and they say, okay, we'll find a group. I find there's a number of women that are sitting together and talking. And I just went there, and they were working on a concept called "It Takes a Village," and it was
Okay.
about helping exhausted moms deal with the overwhelm. It was like therapy. So I mentored them throughout the weekend. Unfortunately, the concept was one that just couldn't work
Okay.
from a business perspective. It was pretty expensive for the market, and we couldn't make the business concept work.
So the problem was clear, the solution wasn't.
Wasn't.
Okay, got it. Mm-hmm.
But I really, like, it felt like the universe was speaking to me. And I connected with those
Mm.
women after the startup event. And I said, look, you guys, you have to do this. Please do this. I will invest in you personally. I will bring on investors. I will help you do
Wow.
this. And they didn't want to move forward with it. Okay, so that was February of 2019. But the idea would 2019, but the idea wouldn't leave me alone. And so finally in August of 2019, I decided I'm going to move forward with this concept, and I figured out the business model so that it could work. There was a little bit of hurt feeling from those gals because I told them, I said, look, I was so excited. I was like, look, I'm going to market with this concept, and here's the logo, and they were hurt. They were like, what, I
Mm.
how could you just go forward with it without us?
But they decided not
They, in
to.
their mind, they had put it on hold. Doesn't mean that they had decided to not. And in my mind,
Oh,
ideas have a
okay.
shelf life. You can't just put things on hold. So I reached back out several times, and we never talked face to face, even though I had offered, because I really wanted to make it work. I did not want them to feel like I stole their idea and moved on, because that wasn't the case. At the end, they wrote back and they said, yeah, we think that we spoke prematurely, and good luck. We hope you know,
Oh,
yeah. So
God.
I hope
Okay.
that we,
Okay.
that I meant the means. But anyway, so the concept
But
evolved.
if I can just, if I like, ideas have a shelf
Ideas have a
life
shelf life.
and we're moving forward or we're not.
Exactly.
And I think one of the really powerful things about tech is that we can collaborate. Collaboration and abundance exists in tech. Like I would argue, no other
Yeah.
industry. And your pace, your decision making, your commitment either plugs you into that or plugs you out of it.
Right.
And there is no hold in tech. I know that I'm an extremist on this, but I'm going to say there's
No,
no
it's
hold on
true.
tech. And there are jobs. There are roles, not job, excuse me. There are roles. I just saw a report come out of, I think it's Fast Fortune, who said that 20 to 25% of positions that are expected to be created in the next 3 months of 2021 have never existed before in tech.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is no
There's no
hold.
hold.
There is extreme abundance, and it's up to us. Okay, so passion. I'm on my soapbox. Now I get off my
No,
soapbox.
you're absolutely right. And it's especially true in tech. I agree. In my view,
Mm-hmm.
it's true on everything. You want
Yeah,
to
that's fair.
do something. There is no better time. That's my biggest learning. It was interesting because those 6 months, February through August, that the idea just wouldn't leave me alone. I kept telling myself, it's not the right time. I will do this when. I will do this when. And finally, I listened to myself and I said, no, I will do this now. Now
Yeah.
is the best time.
Yes.
So, anyways, the company was launched under the brand Dispatch Mom a year ago, September 2020. From August 2019 through September 2020, we were brand building the app, building the technology, and we launched in September 2020. We had a wonderful, wonderful customer the very first day that we launched. She was customer number one, and she believed in us, and she hired us. And her name is Nicole Tritzsteima.
She's
She's
amazing. I've heard about
amazing.
her.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
Because the problem is real. The problem is real. So, my husband, and I am so honored to have been your first customer. I didn't actually know I was your first customer until you told me later. Like, I was just like, I need on the gravy train. So, my husband was a stay at home dad for 3 years. And he is just naturally, innately better set up for certain things than I am. Whereas I am like Miss Ambition. I love creating things. I love getting results, big thinker, all this stuff, which is fantastic for us. And we've, over the course of, I think we've been together now for 18 years, we've switched roles many, many times. But this is our first time living somewhere where we do not have extended family support.
Mm-hmm.
We both have full-time plus professional roles and ambitions. We have 2 kiddos.
Sure.
And ain't nothing getting cleaned.
Right. Exactly.
And I just want to stress that earlier in your story, and I really want to stress it for the listeners. Listeners, do not slow down your career. A home management option is available to you anywhere in the world. When I lived in Germany, I had support. When I live in Colorado, I have support. And
Yeah.
that is an option for us. Do not slow down your career. I see it way too much. Yeah. And so when I heard about I was like, so when you go live, when you go live, when you go live, when you go live. And I forget exactly what happened, but something happened. And the person who was cleaning for us at the time, she had a COVID scare. That's what it was. And I like ran to you and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
And you have made your service, your platform have genuinely made my house and my body through the food delivery healthier.
Yeah.
Because the problem is real.
The problem is real. The problem is real. And I will go out and say this, Nicole, that this has nothing to do with how good, bad, indifferent your significant other is in terms of it really
Preach.
doesn't. It's something that helps families. Okay.
Yes.
It's something that's, and
100%.
there are people out there that love doing this for others, and it gives them economic
Yes.
opportunities. We have 19 what I call fairies, which are service providers on our
Yeah.
platform. And these 19 fairies are gaining daily wages far higher than what they were able to. They're making new connections with people. They're benefiting from an extended network. So they are benefiting. Our customers are benefiting. Do not
Yeah.
slow down your career.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Because now
Yes.
this is true
Yes.
for women. Women who take time off out of their career, they will never gain that back. They will never gain that back. There's studies after studies about how 1 year of time off sets you back multiple years in your career, how that will actually affects your earning potential by 20%. Okay, so that's a bad problem. That is bad. I'm not condoning that problem, but that's the reality that, when people choose to, and I know that this is like, there's considerations for every family, but when people choose to step out because they feel like they can't do both, and we had so many
Yes.
of this in COVID time. When you step out because you feel like you can't do both, let's think again. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see what options there are.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I have found, and this is an area where you and I have exchanged a lot about, is because we both have global backgrounds. So I was an immigrant for many years. You are an immigrant here. We can look at these various systems and say, we are told, I would argue, so US American women are told that it's their problem. And I will say it is not my problem. It is
Yeah.
society's
Yeah.
problem. And so if I can keep myself, and I can't do this all the time,
Yeah.
right? Of course, sometimes I sink underneath it. I'm human. If I can keep my eye on that is society's problem, and I require a solution that can solve millions, but right now it needs to solve for
Right.
me, then I can take inspired action based on my belief, based on my knowledge, based on my goals. And so can my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say the same thing about Germany. I mean, Germany desperately, okay, so I don't think we've said the name of your
Company. Yeah.
company. It's called
Yes.
Emmy, which I love. Germany needs Call Emmy because families there are also suffering different
Mm-hmm.
problems, different
Mm-hmm.
stressors.
Mm-hmm.
And what kills me, and I didn't talk to you beforehand, so we can cut this out if you want. What kills me is that this is a problem to resolve for tens of millions at least just in the United States. And we see these companies that are, trying to solve again for tracking climate change data. There's already 200 some applications. They're getting all this coverage, all this investment, but it already
Mm-hmm.
exists. And you are doing something that solves for tens of millions of people like me who keep the economy
Mm-hmm.
going, who are investing in
Correct.
other people, who are raising a family, all of these things. Why are people not, why are people who have been historically advantaged and have the manas, why are they not pounding down your door and demanding to sit in your living room and write you checks?
They are.
Because I've got a clear picture of what needs to
They
happen.
are actually, interestingly enough.
I
I mean,
love it.
it's starting to come. As you know, we started in September of last year, so we're just having our 1 year anniversary as a business. But really, with the rebrand called Emmy. By the way, my whole
Mm-hmm.
manager was Emmy. That's her name. So that's why with a rebrand, I mean, we're growing significantly, and we have clients. We have a general counsel who lives in Texas, but she has a home here. and her
Yeah.
daughter lives here. And when she comes to stay at her home and visit her daughter and her granddaughter, she wants to spend that time with her daughter and her granddaughter. She does not want
Yes.
to worry about, oh, is my house clean? Do I have stuff in the fridge? She doesn't. We have like one customer, and I wrote to her a couple days ago. One of the services that we offer is we do in-home laundry and chores. So we go to people's homes
Mhm.
and we kind of pick up the house. We do their laundry, we fold it, we just give them a few hours of relief. We had this customer who first said, oh, you're too expensive. And then she came back and she was hiring us once a week. And she just wrote to us, she's like, I can't live without this service. I want to do this twice a week. And so
Yeah.
she can have that time to do what benefits her personally and professionally. So that could be, okay, go spend time with your kids, go read a book, go take a class, go take a nap, go for a walk,
Yes.
go talk with your girlfriends, go have a meeting with a client. Yes.
Absolutely.
And so it's really, really
Absolutely.
rewarding. For all of you who are listening and are in Colorado, download Call Emmy, the app,
Yes.
and give us a try. You'll get hooked.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So there's cleaning, organizing, laundry
Laundry
with
and
chores,
chores, babysitting.
babysitting or
Yes.
childcare. And what other services do you have?
We are going to add a few more services. We don't have it yet, but one of the services that I'm really excited about is called, I don't know what to call it. So if anyone has a good suggestion, let me know. So you know the period between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. is a really chaotic period for all families because you're transitioning from
Yes.
work, you're transitioning into home, kids are home, you're trying to get ready for dinner. There is no downtime in 4 to 7 p.m., right? And so we
Yes.
are trying to create a service where these fairies go to these homes from 4 to 7 p.m. and do all of that so that the parents, the mom and dad, can have a good, easier transition from work into their home.
That will be really powerful for caregivers,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
Because, especially for seniors who are coming out of the daycare and they're transitioning, and perhaps they have physical stuff or dementia or whatever, that is such a hard time for those families
It's
as
very
well.
true.
That's the witching
The
hour.
witching hour.
The witching hour. That's very interesting. Yeah. Ugh. There's so many themes in this. Like, don't lie to yourself. Right? You can only do that for so long. Invest in yourself. Believe in yourself. You can invest in yourself and your family with home management or other services. There is no hold period. There's today. That always brings me to the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So plant the tree today. We've talked about what Call Emmy is, the problem it's resolving. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
question. I think
Yes.
maybe you've already started a little bit. Who is your brave role model from your
My
life?
grandmother.
Talk to us about your grandma.
My grandmother, she passed away in 2004. My grandmother was a larger than life character. So she was born early 1900s. Yeah. She was 93 when she died in 2004. So what is it? 1911 was when she was born in Iran, and not even in the capital of Iran, in the provinces, Western province.
Okay. So she was born into a monarch based Iran? No. What would she have been born into?
Yeah, at that time it was a monarchy in Iran.
Okay. Okay.
But still, I mean, that was a very early monarchy, very early
Yeah.
monarchy. So she had sixth grade education. And she was saying that every morning, like she would wake up and she would beg her mother to send her to school. Please, I want to go to school. So anyway, so she only got sixth grade education, and She was married off at age, she wasn't an adult, she was a child. So maybe 16, I think.
Mm.
Or no, maybe a little even, maybe 14. But her husband was also equally, like they were children that when they got married. And her husband was a wonderful man. So from that, she had, I don't know, she had 4 kids that survived, and then a couple of kids that didn't survive.
Oof.
But no, 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 this is not a bad story. Listen to this. So she
Times were so different,
different.
weren't they? Like, I'm just so full of gratitude that my daughter
Hmm.
has such a different
Correct.
experience.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So with all of that, she lived in, again, in Western provinces until she was 40 years old. Her husband died of cancer, and he was like, what, 45, just a few years older. She had, my mom was a very young child. When my grandfather, her husband, died, he had a lot of debt. And my grandma paid off all the debt, sold the assets, moved her family from the west, and she had moved the family before then, moved the family from western provinces to Tehran, to the capital. And when she moved her family to the capital, her extended family, her husband's family, they all moved to the capital as well. They're like, oh, she knows what she's doing, we're going to follow her.
She knows what she's
So
doing.
that
I
she
love
moved
it.
to Tehran. They all moved to Tehran. My grandfather died. My grandmother liquidated the assets, paid off all the debt, and started investing. You were talking about investing in yourself. That's what my grandmother did.
Yeah.
Started investing. Now, investing in herself, investing in her financial well being. She started buying real estate and building homes and renting them and selling them. So, all of that, I mean, she lived independently all her life. And she was the
Wow.
matriarch in the family, wonderful human. She moved to the US at age 85. She became a citizen at age 85. Now, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the first thing she did when she moved to the US?
I mean, I'm thinking about, it's not the same thing, but the refugees I supported were so focused on learning English so
Exactly.
that their descendants could go to school, get an
That's
education.
exactly it. She signed up for
Really?
English lessons at age 85. Yes. She borrowed my dictionary. I had this big farce. Yes. And she had indexed it, and she would do her homework, and she would actually feel anxious about, oh, I got to do my homework at
Wow.
age 85.
After a sixth grade education.
She will always be my brave role model because nothing stopped that woman. Nothing stopped her.
And you are so strongly walking in her footprints, standing on her shoulders.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I have teared
Oh,
up. That is just beautiful and so inspirational as well. Her spirit, her memory, her lessons will move on through your generations.
that's for sure.
Mm.
That's for sure.
Whew. So, how can people continue to learn from you, to experience you, to get involved in Call Emmy?
Thank you. Well, so they can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm actually pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more active on Twitter. So Twitter would be another one. I have a giant name, which I'm sure it'll go in your podcast notes. So just,
It
yeah.
absolutely will.
So look me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. Download Call Emmy, Emmy like Emmy Awards, EMMY, CALL space EMMY. Download the app. Yeah, let's connect.
Excellent. Yeah, and definitely. So I'm not super active on Twitter, but on LinkedIn you really do. Your comments show up in my feed and I definitely get value from your network in that indirect way as well. So follow, follow, follow. Everything is in the show notes. Arezou, I'm so grateful for
Oh,
you sharing this incredibly vulnerable story and inspirational role model. I'm also deeply grateful for the service that you're bringing into the world.
thank you.
And there are genuinely, fully, completely tens of millions of people who need to benefit for what you're bringing. And I so strongly believe that it's absolutely just the beginning. And I'm so glad to hear that
Thank you so
investors
much.
agree with me.
Thank you.
All
It
right.
was an honor, Nicole. Thank
With
you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Celebrate Brave podcast. If you're ready to build your brave, to live a life you love, and create a career that matters to you, reach out. Together, we can spend time one-on-one to explore how I can help you. And until then, share this episode with people in your life, people who can join our movement to redefine brave, how we identify it, experience it, and celebrate it.